Old man, tattered coat, sips coffee. 3 teenagers walk in. One calls him a walking mummy. No one intervenes. No one says a word. But what they didn't know, that man is a veteran who once risked his life for this flag. And just 1 hour later, black SUVs rolled in. Federal agents sealed off the entire block because one man broke a national protocol to defend the honor of someone the whole diner had dismissed. This isn't just a clip. This is one of thousands of veteran stories society tries to forget. At Justice for Veterans, we don't let them be silenced anymore. And if you think this story is made up, watch till the end. Vo, gentle, slow, emotional narration. Walter Green, 80, 2 years old, once a heavy gunner in Korea. Now, he lives alone, no home, no family, no medals. All he has left is a worn VFW cap and a pair of trembling hands. He walks into Rosie's diner like he always does. A familiar place, yet one where he's invisible. Frayed jacket, worn heels. The smell of old sweat follows each step. He chooses the table by the window where sunlight reaches, but people don't. Linda, the longtime waitress, sets down his coffee without looking him in the eye. "You again," she mutters, like he's a blemish on a peaceful morning. Walter takes a sip, his hand trembling, eyes gazing through the glass, as if remembering a world that's long forgotten him. Vu, measured tone with a hint of mystery. In the far corner, near the old bookshelf, sits a man by himself. David Cole, mid-50s, khaki jacket, black cap, holding a book on war strategy. He's not loud, not flashy, but his eyes, cold, deep, always observing, are not ordinary. David glanced up when Walter walked in, just a brief look like someone too familiar with forgotten old soldiers. He took a sip of coffee, set the book down, and continued watching silently. No one knows who David is, only that he shows up every morning at 7 a.m., same seat, like it's pre-programmed. Nobody notices him, but he notices everything. And today, he'll see what everyone else pretends not to. SFX. Door slams open, louder than usual chime. So, sharper narration, slight increase in pace. 3 teens burst into the diner, loud laughs, heavy steps, dragging in a mess of energy. Tyler, Jaden, Chris, familiar names, not for kindness, but for chaos. Tyler nudges Walter's chair. Jaden points at the cap. "What war was this from, Grandpa?" Chris snickers. "Did he pull it from a museum or what?" Walter doesn't respond. He just reaches for the cap as if letting it fall would mean losing what's left of his life. A sudden slap. The cap hits the floor. The whole diner stays silent. No one stands up. No one steps in. Linda freezes mid-wipe. One customer ducks into his phone. Walter leans down to retrieve the cap, hands shaking, but no hand reaches out to help. Only one pair of eyes, still watching, from the corner, unblinking, VO, slow, tight narration. Walter bends down, trembling fingers clutching the brim, as if clinging to the last shred of dignity. No one says a word, no apology, no confrontation. Linda keeps wiping the glass, but slower. A middle-aged man near the door pretends to make a call. The teens? They stand tall like they've just won something. Walter doesn't leave. He stays, hunched deeper, eyes cast down, the cap placed in front of him, a reminder of who he once was. And then, a chair scrapes across the floor. From the corner, David Cole stands up. No one looks directly, but everyone senses it. Something is about to happen. VO. Firm narration. Each sentence clipped with intent. David walks toward the table. Slow, steady, no rush, but full of purpose. The teens turn. Tyler smirks. "What are you gonna do? Give us a lecture?" David. Low voice. Not loud, but commanding. "You done talking?" Jaden starts to respond, but David's eyes halt him. Not rage, not yelling, just a stare sharp as winter wind through barracks, the kind that makes you stand at attention. Chris glances at the others, then takes a step back. Tyler shrugs, says nothing. All three turn and walk out. David doesn't watch them go. He simply bends down, gently picks up the veteran's cap, brushes off the dust, and sets it back in front of Walter. David, you left this behind. VO, warm, slow, emotionally grounded. David sat down without another word. He pushed the cap closer to Walter, giving a quiet nod. Walter accepted it, still trembling, but his eyes were different. Walter, I wore this in Huachan, back in '53. David didn't ask where Huachan was. He already knew. Two men, one old, one middle-aged, sat in a quiet diner, as if surrounded by the echoes of fallen brothers. Walter, I lost 3 friends that night. After that, I never returned to base. I never really came home. David said no words of pity. He simply pulled out his wallet, quietly laid a few bills on the table, and made a promise. David, they're not forgotten, and neither are you. Walter pressed his lips together, eyes moist. For the first time in years, he no longer felt invisible. David Cole left the diner the same way he'd entered. No rush, no show, no need for praise. Linda, the waitress who'd poured coffee without meeting Walter's eyes this time. She looked after David. She didn't know who he was, but the way he stood up made her feel like she'd just missed something important. David stepped into the sunlight, his shadow stretching across the sidewalk, unaware that, minutes later, that shadow would bring half the national security force behind it. Inside, Walter sat still, but this time, he didn't look down. His cap was back on his head, right where it belonged. And Linda, for the first time in years at Rosie's diner, refilled a cup of coffee without being asked. 3 minutes after David Cole left Rosie's diner, everything started to change. The first black SUV appeared at the end of the block. Then another. Then 5. Then 8, all with tinted windows. No plates. Moving with the precision of a military convoy. People peeked through curtains. Phones came out. Men in black suits with earpieces began forming a perimeter. A local cop tried to ask questions but was told to leave the area. Federal zone. No one knew what was happening. Some thought it was a bomb threat. Others whispered, maybe the president's coming? And then, one SUV stopped dead center on the street. Its rear door opened slowly. A pair of polished black dress shoes stepped out, and behind them, the silhouette of a military general. Brigadier General Sam Whitmore, one of the Pentagon's highest-ranking officers. But he wasn't there to give a speech. He wasn't there to inspect troops. He came to meet a man. A massive SUV halted inside the lockdown perimeter. Its rear door opened slow, deliberate. Glossy black shoes hit the pavement. Then 4 gleaming stars caught the morning sun. Brigadier General Sam Whitmore, head of Joint Security Command, a name that had just cleared the entire defense calendar for this morning. No one knew why a general needed to show up in person. To do what? Meet who? It had to be something big, but Whitmore didn't head to the command post. He didn't stop at the federal van. He turned left, toward the end of the street, where one man leaned casually against a car. Frayed khaki coat, black cap, no rank, no insignia. Whitmore, Commander Cole, you violated direct protocol, no ordinary man. And now, everyone knew. He was the one the Pentagon was trying to find. David Cole didn't flinch. His eyes didn't avoid, and he didn't apologize. David, I watched, until I saw 3 kids slap the cap off a man who fought for their right to stand there. Whitmore. Orders were clear. No exposure, no identity breach, no contact. Silence, a gust of wind. 2 men stood mid-street like bronze statues in an invisible battlefield. David. I've stood in a command bunker as 12 men didn't return. They held their ground. So did I. Whitmore exhaled. Not in anger, but in recognition. Whitmore. You haven't changed. You really are, Cole. In that moment there were no ranks, no chains of command. Only one thing remained. Honor. And the man who held on to it when everyone else looked away. From afar, the agents stood stiff. No one dared approach those two men. One an active general, the other a commander gone missing from official records for 6 years. Whitmore. The Pentagon's been searching for you. You were supposed to be at Fort Bragg today. Everyone thought you were dead. David smirked faintly. He offered no explanation. Whitmore. I'm not here to arrest you, because no one at the top has the right to give you orders. That sentence alone made several officers nearby lower their gaze. David Cole wasn't just an operative. He was the one who wrote the protocols they now followed. And today, the man who broke the rules was the only one who still remembered what the rules were meant to protect: respect and human dignity. Whitmore. I don't know what I'll report, but if it were me, I'd have done the same thing. And so, they stood there. No superior, no subordinate, just two old soldiers, and one righteous choice, even if it broke the chain of command. One customer at the diner, who hadn't said a word all morning, had recorded the moment David stood up for Walter. No filters, no edits, just a trembling old man's cap on the floor, and someone who rose to pick it up. Within 24 hours, the video reached 2 million views. By day 3, it was all over national news. Headline: The unknown man who defended a veteran and brought honor back. The very next morning, Walter Green received a call from the U.S. Veterans Organization. They sent a car to pick him up from the bus stop, where he'd been sleeping every night. He was invited to Washington, not to ask for help, but to be honored. 1 minute of raw truth, enough to take a soldier from the sidewalk back to the center of a nation's heart. Inside the National Veterans Hall, hundreds gathered: veterans, officers, students, and center stage sat an empty chair. A moment later, Walter Green stepped out, still hunched, still slow in his steps, but this time he didn't walk alone. Beside him stood a young officer, holding a freshly restored VFW cap stitched with the words, "Watch on, 1953. Walter didn't say much. He simply bowed his head, clutched the cap, and spoke one sentence. Walter, I never thought honor still had a place to return to. In the crowd, no one noticed the man in the black cap sitting in the last row. He wasn't in uniform. He didn't stand. But when Walter saluted, that man lifted his hand to his forehead, precise and barely visible. David Cole slipped back into the crowd, as if he was never there, like a shadow that had followed the old soldier from beginning to end. Walter Green didn't ask for pity. He just wanted to be seen, to be heard, to be treated as someone who once risked everything for this country. What happened at Rosie's Diner isn't rare. It happens every day, somewhere. To thousands of veterans society has forgotten. And then, someone stood up. Not out of duty, not for recognition, but for honor. For what's right, even if it meant breaking the rules. At Justice for Veterans, we believe no silence is neutral, and no one who served this country should ever be treated as invisible. If you've ever seen a Walter in a diner, on the street, in someone's tired eyes, don't look away. Don't pretend you're busy. Be the one who stands up. Share this story and comment. I stand for those who served. If you believe this too, respect is not a privilege, it's our duty. To those who never asked for anything, except to be remembered.